The deepest gold mine on Earth has never created a single atom of gold. It has only uncovered atoms that were already there. That's a strange thing to say about a metal buried beneath our feet. We mine it here. We refine it here. We turn it into coins, watches, and wedding rings. Everything about gold feels unmistakably terrestrial. One fact refuses to fit. No process anywhere inside Earth has ever been shown to manufacture a gold atom. If that's true, then every piece of gold on this planet arrived here already made. A simple wedding ring becomes the first piece of evidence. Its scratches belong to Earth. Its craftsmanship belongs to us. But its atoms may belong to a story that began long before our planet existed. The trail leads underground, into a gold mine. Deep underground, drills cut through ancient rock. Quartz veins emerge from the darkness, threaded with bright streaks of gold. Ore is blasted apart, hauled to the surface, crushed, refined, melted, and shaped into jewelry. Every step is real. Every step can be filmed. Every step moves gold from one place to another. None of those steps creates it. That raises an uncomfortable possibility. There is an obvious alternative. Maybe the gold wasn't created in the mine. Maybe it was created much deeper. Far beneath the crust, under pressures and temperatures no laboratory can reproduce. The evidence tests that idea directly. The hottest rocks inside Earth can melt stone. They can reshape continents. They can drive volcanoes and lift mountain ranges. But they cannot change the nuclei of atoms. The energy required to force atomic nuclei together is millions of times greater than anything Earth's geology can produce. Geological processes operate in the world of chemistry, rearranging electrons and minerals. Gold nuclei belong to the world of nuclear physics, where entirely different rules apply. Earth can transport gold. Earth can concentrate gold. Earth can bury it and reveal it again over billions of years. But Earth cannot manufacture it. The case changes. The mine is no longer the birthplace of the ring. It is only the place where ancient material was recovered. The same wedding band rests under the same ordinary light. Nothing about its appearance has changed. Only its identity has. It is no longer evidence of something Earth created. It is evidence of something Earth inherited. The investigation now has to leave the planet. An obvious answer still remains. If Earth did not manufacture the gold, perhaps an ordinary star did. After all, stars are the great factories of the universe. Every second, deep inside their cores, enormous pressure forces light atoms together. Hydrogen becomes helium. Helium gives way to heavier elements. Layer by layer, a massive star builds the material that will one day become planets, oceans, and living worlds. At first, the idea seems complete. The ring could simply be another product of that stellar assembly line. The investigation follows the chain inward. Models of stellar interiors show successive shells where heavier and heavier elements are forged. With each stage, the temperatures rise, the pressures increase. The nuclei being built become larger and more complex. Everything points toward the same expectation. Keep adding one element after another, and eventually you should arrive at gold. But one measurement refuses to cooperate. When physicists plot how tightly atomic nuclei are bound together, the curve climbs steadily until it reaches iron. Then it changes direction. Up to iron, fusion releases energy. That released energy is what allows a star to keep shining against the crushing force of its own gravity. Beyond iron, the rules reverse. Trying to fuse heavier nuclei no longer powers the star. It demands energy instead. The stellar engine reaches a physical limit. It is not a matter of stars lacking enough time. It is not a matter of stars failing to become hot enough. The process itself stops working. The evidence is written into the measured binding energies of atomic nuclei and reflected in everything astronomers observe about the lives of massive stars. The investigation changes again. Ordinary stars can explain much of the universe around us. They cannot fully explain the gold inside this ring. The ring returns. It looks exactly as it did before. Yet it now carries a second impossible identity. Earth did not create its atoms. Neither could the quiet lifetime of an ordinary star. Somewhere in the universe, there had to be an environment far more violent than anything a living star could sustain. The investigation has just lost its second suspect. One familiar explanation still refuses to disappear. If ordinary stars cannot produce gold, perhaps their deaths can. For decades, exploding stars have been closely associated with the creation of heavy elements. A supernova releases more energy in moments than our sun will emit over its entire lifetime. It seems like the perfect place to finish the job. The investigation tests that assumption. Computer models reconstruct the collapse of massive stars. Telescopes measure the chemical makeup of ancient stars across our galaxy. Nuclear physicists calculate how rapidly heavy elements should appear if supernovae are the primary source. At first, the evidence looks encouraging. Supernovae do produce heavy elements. They are an essential part of the story. But when the investigation reaches the heaviest members of the family, something begins to drift out of alignment. Predictions and observations no longer match as cleanly as expected. The calculations struggle to reproduce enough of many of the heaviest elements, including gold, when ordinary core collapse supernovae are considered on their own. The missing ingredient is not energy. It is neutrons. To build nuclei as heavy as gold, atomic seeds must capture enormous numbers of free neutrons before they have time to decay. The process has to unfold in a fraction of a second inside an environment flooded with neutrons at extraordinary densities. Modern supernova models can create some of these conditions. But for many of the heaviest elements, they fall short of supplying enough neutrons consistently enough to explain what astronomers observe throughout the galaxy. The investigation changes again. The supernova is no longer the complete answer. It remains part of the universe's chemical history. But it cannot fully account for the gold inside the ring. Only then does another possibility begin to take shape. Not an ordinary star. Not even the explosion of one. Instead, two dead stars. Each one no larger than a city. Each one containing more mass than the sun. Locked together in an orbit that shrinks year after year until separation becomes impossible. Unlike the previous explanations, this environment begins with something the investigation has been searching for all along. Matter already made almost entirely of neutrons. Theoretical models show that when these objects collide, vast amounts of neutron-rich material are torn free. The conditions naturally favor the rapid neutron capture process required to assemble many of the universe's heaviest nuclei. For the first time, the evidence points toward an environment that appears capable of producing the missing elements. The wedding ring returns. It has not become proof. Not yet. It has become a piece of evidence waiting for confirmation. The investigation has a leading suspect. Now it must answer a far more difficult question. Has anyone ever watched one of these collisions happen? A convincing explanation is still only an explanation. The investigation needs evidence. On August 17, 2017, instruments built to measure tiny distortions in space itself recorded an unusual signal. It began as a slow rhythm. Then the pulses grew closer together. Faster. Stronger. Higher in pitch. For almost 2 minutes, the pattern accelerated before ending abruptly. The observatories had not seen light. They had measured a ripple moving through space-time. From the shape of that ripple alone, researchers reconstructed the objects that produced it. Neither was large enough to be a black hole. Both matched the masses expected for neutron stars. For the first time, the investigation had directly observed 2 dead stars spiraling together until they collided. The leading suspect was no longer hypothetical. But the case was still incomplete. Gravitational waves could reveal what collided. They could not reveal what the collision created. The investigation needed a second, completely independent line of evidence. Within hours, telescopes around the world turned toward the same region of the sky. There, inside a distant galaxy, they found a new point of light that had not been there before. At first, it shone with a brilliant blue glow. Day by day, that color faded. The light drifted steadily toward the infrared. This change was not a coincidence. As the expanding cloud cooled, newly formed heavy elements made it increasingly difficult for shorter wavelengths of light to escape. The changing spectrum matched what physicists had predicted for matter enriched with heavy elements produced through rapid neutron capture. The investigation changed again. The collision had not only been detected, its aftermath had been measured. But one question still remained. Could the light itself reveal what filled that expanding cloud? Astronomers separated the light into its individual wavelengths. Instead of the clean, narrow patterns expected from ordinary gases, they found something very different. The spectrum had become broad, complex, heavily absorbed. It matched what researchers expected from an expanding cloud rich in freshly synthesized heavy R-process material, including the same family of elements as gold and platinum. No single observation solved the case. The gravitational wave signal reconstructed the collision. The optical observations located the explosion. The evolving spectrum revealed the nature of the expanding debris. Each measurement answered a different question. Together, they described the same event. The investigation no longer depended on theoretical models alone. It now rested on direct observation. The wedding ring returns. Nothing about its appearance has changed. Yet its identity has changed once again. It is no longer connected only to a plausible birthplace. It now follows a documented chain of evidence that begins with 2 neutron stars, continues through a measured collision, and passes through a cloud where many heavy elements were newly created. Only one part of its journey has not yet been reconstructed. How did those ancient atoms become part of Earth itself? The investigation now follows the final part of the journey. Not the birth of gold, its arrival. The collision scattered newly formed heavy elements into space. The expanding cloud did not remain where it was created. Over immense spans of time, it cooled. It spread. It mixed with the gas and dust already drifting through the Milky Way. The investigation cannot point to one specific collision and say, "This is where the gold in your ring came from." The evidence does not allow that conclusion. What it does show is something equally important. Long before our solar system existed, the galaxy had already been enriched by earlier generations of violent cosmic events. Heavy elements produced through the rapid neutron capture process became part of vast molecular clouds that would eventually collapse to form new stars and new planets. The investigation follows that reconstruction. A cold cloud of gas and dust begins to contract under its own gravity. At its center, a new star ignites. Around it, a rotating disk of gas, ice, rock, and inherited heavy elements slowly takes shape. Nothing inside this young solar system is manufacturing gold. The gold is already there. It arrived as part of the raw material from which everything else is built. Primitive meteorites preserve part of that history. Their chemical composition records the presence of heavy elements that existed before the planets formed. They are surviving samples of the material from which the early solar system assembled itself. The investigation changes for the final time. Earth did not receive gold after it was fully formed. Earth formed with gold already mixed into its building material. As the young planet evolved, gravity separated its layers. Heat reshaped its interior. Water circulated through fractures in the crust. Over immense spans of geological time, those processes gathered inherited gold into concentrated deposits beneath the surface. The atoms never changed. Only their location did. Eventually, miners uncovered those deposits. Refineries separated the metal from the surrounding rock. A jeweler melted it, shaped it, polished it, and placed it into a simple wedding band. The investigation has reconstructed one continuous chain. A neutron star collision. The rapid creation of heavy elements. The gradual enrichment of the galaxy. The birth of the solar system. The formation of Earth. Geological concentration. Mining. Refining. The ring. The wedding band returns one final time. It rests under the same ordinary light as before. Its scratches are the same. Its color is the same. Its weight is the same. Nothing visible has changed. Only the evidence surrounding it. This is no longer simply a piece of jewelry. It is preserved matter that was forged during the collision of two neutron stars, carried across the galaxy, inherited by the solar system, concentrated by Earth's geology, and finally placed on a human hand. The investigation is complete.